Now, I've been waiting all weekend to speak with my next guest about the extraordinary scenes in the Oval Office and the fallout from the Zelensky affair, including Keir Starmer's comments about boots on the ground. Joining me now is Newsweek Senior Editor-at-Large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel Josh Hammer. Josh, I've seldom seen more misinformation, more ill-informed emoting masquerading as analysis on any issue than what transpired at the White House. It's why I'm eager to get your sober, reality-based commentary. I watched the full interaction. It goes for around 50 minutes and it's eye-opening. I'd suggest to any pundit commenting on this issue to actually watch that full encounter before opining about what happened in the White House. But Josh, these negotiations have been underway for some time, and some crazy reasons, Zelensky decided to renegotiate the deal in front of the world's media and decided to do it by being incredibly rude, incredibly dismissive of both the president and the vice president.
Rita, it's one of the most astonishing things I think I've ever seen in politics. I was actually recording an episode of my own show, The Josh Hammer Show, while this was happening live at the White House, and I recorded a whole segment on the Russia-Ukraine deal because I assumed that it was basically a done deal. And then I saw what happened, and I texted my producer. I was like, oh my God, we have to redo the entire segment. Like, what the heck just happened at the White House here? I mean, what was Zelensky thinking? I mean, I, like you, Rita, have watched this entire exchange there. You know, it almost seems to me like he went in there with the full intention of just blowing this up. And I'm not entirely sure exactly what he's trying to do, other than the fact that, one, I don't think he's very good at this. I don't think Volodymyr Zelensky is very good at this whole international politics thing. Two, he must have the worst advisors in the world. Remember when he did that campaign stop with Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania at the munitions factory? He has gone all in repeatedly for the left, for liberals, for Democrats there. And he doubled down and tripled down, quadrupled down in utterly spectacular fashion there. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, Rita, let's be very clear here. They did nothing wrong. Nothing. I cannot name a single thing that I think they did wrong. On the contrary, they had extraordinary patience there. They spent roughly 35 minutes out of that 55-minute or so exchange there trying to get Zelensky to actually agree to the deal that he had basically, in theory, already agreed to. The whole thing's a mess. The whole thing's a mess, but Zelensky is entirely to blame for it. He really is 100% to blame here, I think.
Well, when you do watch the entire exchange, you do see that Donald Trump in particular was uncharacteristically patient and diplomatic, as Zelensky just was dismissive, would make comments, would roll his eyes. It was just... I just don't know why that performance took place. And I do wonder whether this relationship between Zelensky and the Trump administration is salvageable. I hope for the sake of the Ukrainian people it is salvageable and it's done quickly. But even some of Zelensky's biggest supporters, including Senator Lindsey Graham, who has campaigned endlessly for further funding for Ukraine, even he was appalled by what happened in the Oval Office. And I've got to say, this is significant. This is his comments shortly after the press conference ended.
What I saw in the Oval Office was disrespectful, and I don't know if we can ever do business with Zelensky again. I think most Americans saw a guy that they would not want to go in business with. The way he handled the meeting, the way he confronted the president, was just over the top. He either needs to resign and send somebody over that we can do business with, or he needs to change.
That's from Volodymyr Zelensky's most ardent backer, arguably, over the past 3 years. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio explains here the administration's frustrations with Zelensky and the discussions he had about that minerals deal, which Zelensky backed in the meetings they had.
And he said, sure, we want to do this deal. It makes all the sense in the world. The only thing is I need to run it through my legislative process. They have to approve it. I read 2 days later that Zelensky's out there saying, I rejected the deal. I told him, no way, that we're not doing that. Well, that's not what happened in that meeting. So you start to get upset by somebody. We're trying to help these guys. President Trump's not the kind of person that's going to sit there and take that. He's very transparent. He's going to tell you exactly how he feels. And he sent a message that he's not going to get gamed here. He's willing to work on peace because he cares about Ukraine. And he hopes Zelensky will be a partner in that and not someone who's out there putting this sort of counter messaging to try to, hustle us in that regard. That's not that's not going to be productive here.
Josh, this hustling, these strategies may have worked with the last administration. We do know Joe Biden lost his temper with Zelensky and shouted at him. But in the end, he kept writing these massive checks on behalf of the American people. But the American people don't want this anymore. They don't want to be funding this war. This was an election issue. We know precisely where President Trump stands on this issue. So again, I do wonder why Zelensky took the route he took, knowing this administration's position on this entire catastrophe.
So here's my best guess. I mean, one, I genuinely meant what I said a few minutes ago. I think that Vladimir Zelensky is kind of an idiot when it comes to international geopolitics. I actually do not think he understands American political dynamics particularly well. By the way, he would be far from the first foreign leader to fail to properly understand American political dynamics. Our politics can be a little complicated, not necessarily his fault there. But he also just totally mistook the year. I mean, the year is 2025. I think that he still thinks the year is 2022 and that Joe Biden is still in charge because, again, he has made his bed with the Democrats. He did that whole campaign stop with Kamala Harris there. He's just completely unwilling to read the room and to see the tea leaves and recognize what they are. By the way, the deal that he should have agreed to that I still think ultimately has a chance if Zelensky steps down and is replaced by a different leader there, this mineral rights deal, actually a pretty good deal for Ukraine. The U.S. is not going to go all in at this point on a NATO-esque security guarantee with boots on the ground thing for Ukraine. What a mineral rights deal does do, though, or some sort of economic arrangement, it gives the United States real, meaningful, tangible skin in the game. That actually does make them invested, quite literally, in the outcome of peace and prosperity and economic growth and the shared pie and all that stuff in Ukraine. So if Zelensky had two wits about him, if he had any common sense whatsoever, he would have read the room. He would have gone in there. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Vice President, for your taxpayers who have spent $150 billion or whatever the heck this gargantuan sum has been there. Thank you for the fact that you campaigned relentlessly on peace, and yet here you are inviting me here to the Oval Office. By the way, I noticed that you're meeting with me before Vladimir Putin. I'm flattered by that. Thank you for that there. Like, there's misplaying your hand, and then there's like misplaying the most important meme that your country has had in a century, and he's done the latter, not the former.
That's all he needed to do. He needed to wear a suit. It's a small thing, but it shows respect. You're in the Oval Office, you're meeting the president, the leader of the free world. Wear a suit, be deferential, be polite, just conduct yourself how you would with hopefully any world leader, and walk away with an advantageous deal for your people, for your country that has been devastated by 3 years of war, which Russia started with this invasion. But do we want peace? Because there are only three options here, and even the most pro-ardent Ukraine expert who's honest will tell you this, that we can either have the war continue, and that's only going to work in Ukraine's favour. Their only chance of winning is if there's troops sent from around the world, boots on the ground, and we're going to talk about that shortly, which is potentially the start of World War III against a nuclear power in Russia. Second option is that you give up and Russia wins. No one wants that. The third option is peace with an advantageous deal for Ukraine, and this is what was being worked out. So for it to be blown up in this fashion, I think is just devastating. And you talked about Vladimir Zelensky not understanding the American dynamic, the current politics. Have a look at this polling on Ukraine and how much opinions have shifted amongst the American people on not just this conflict, but opinions on Zelensky himself. This poll, I hasten to add, was taken before the meeting.
U.S. support for Ukraine is too much. Back when the war began, back in February of 2022, it was just 7%. Up like a rocket ship. My goodness. Up now in February of 2025 to 41%. And the clear majority of Republicans, and of course Republicans are in charge of the U.S. government now, 62% of Republicans say that the U.S. support for Ukraine is too much. What a difference from just 3 years ago. Feelings towards Zelensky have changed also dramatically. Look at this. Confident Zelensky will do the right thing when it comes to world affairs. Back in 2022, it was the clear majority, 72% through the floor. Through the floor by 2024, just 48%.
I think after that performance in the White House, the figure is going to be far lower, Josh. And again, Trump got elected on an American first agenda. It underpins his entire platform. And it seems that's lost on so many political pundits. It seems to have been lost on most of the EU because that means something. That's more than just USA chants and high fives. That means you do what's best for the American people, and the American people have made it clear that they do not want to fund these endless wars.
That's exactly correct. By the way, I'm actually kind of surprised, per Harry Enton's graphic there on CNN, I'm a little surprised that 41% of Americans who think that there's too much support for Ukraine, I would think that number would actually be even higher. I think that number probably will go up even higher now over the next week or so after that meeting on Friday. I guess we'll see what it is. But Donald Trump's the art of the deal guy, Rita. I mean, this is the guy who became famous with the whole art of the deal thing. He became famous hosting The Apprentice. He loves deal making, and this is a deal that he literally campaigned on. This is one of the hallmarks of his campaign, was bringing this interminable conflict in eastern Ukraine and Russia to an end. You know, the media tends to focus so much, Rita, oftentimes on the Middle East and the war in Gaza and Lebanon, all that there. But let me just say, the death toll in those conflicts, while every innocent life lost is obviously tragic, pales in comparison to the orders of magnitude more people, oftentimes young men who have just been slaughtered on the front lines on both sides of this conflict. An entire generation of Ukrainians has essentially been lost. That country, it's going to take a half century to a century to fully get back in terms of demographics, economy there. The whole country's been wrecked. So if Volodymyr Zelensky is still committed to this day till fighting till he retains every single square inch of territory, he will countenance no possible deal without a NATO-esque security guarantee. I ask you, Mr. Zelensky, at what cost? At what cost to your own country, to your own people that, again, has been just utterly devastated by this? All the people who have been slaughtered, who have moved abroad there. Ukraine it's going to take my entire lifetime to recover from this. I'm not sure that Zelensky understands that. I think he probably does not, frankly, because, again, he's so high on his own supply from the 4 years of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and all the various Democratic boosters in the United States Senate in particular there. But if he can't get the job done, Rita, he has to go. He has to resign and get someone in charge who can actually get this peace deal done.
Now, Josh, we've seen the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer praised widely for standing with Zelensky at his time of need. Let's listen to what he had to say and see if you can catch the enormous contradiction.
The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air. Together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting. But to support peace in our continent and to succeed, this effort must have strong US backing.
Josh, what are the chances that the US will back anything resembling boots on the ground?
So, I mean, Rita, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the contradiction that you're getting at is, on the one hand, Keir Starmer saying that Europe must take care of its own backyard. And then on the other hand, like 2 seconds later, he's saying it must have strong US backing as well. Look, the entire purpose of what Trump is trying to do, right, it's essential. I mean, the entire purpose of what Donald Trump is trying to do in the Russia-Ukraine theater is to transfer the baton, so to speak, to the Europeans to better patrol their own backyard. Look, America is in a difficult situation. Barack Obama, back in the year 2014, around then, Rita, he became the first president in U.S. history to formally disavow a longstanding United States military doctrine that required that the U.S. be militarily capable of winning two major conflicts simultaneously on the world stage. Barack Obama conscientiously got rid of that. Since then, and especially with the concomitant rise of China, the United States is in a somewhat precarious position on the world stage. We're basically in a century-long great power competition with China. China is a rival when it comes to the economy, when it comes to national security, when it comes to basically everything out there. What that means is that we cannot fund interminably a Slavic proxy war in eastern Ukraine. It's simply not in the American national interest to do so. That is the MAGA America First point. And on that point, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are entirely right. By the way, if we cannot provoke the Russian bear so much, maybe, just maybe, we can sever the link between Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin and Xi Jinping and the Chinese Politburo, and maybe, just maybe, pull the Russians not necessarily into the American sphere of influence, but at least in something remotely approximating neutrality. So if you can basically sever that Russo-Sino link between Russia and China, that would be a brilliant, absolutely brilliant act of statesmanship. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not confidently predicting that there, but I do think that Donald Trump is such a successful historical deal maker that's probably in the back of his mind there. And again, the Europeans have to take care of this. The Germans, the Poles, the French, the Brits. Come on, guys, muscle up and put some dollars down.
Look, if Europe can increase defence spending, if they can commit forces to protect their own continent, I think Donald Trump and most Americans will be enormously happy with that. But whether that's actually going to happen is the question. Before you go, the New York Post is reporting that Vice President J.D. Vance was forced to move his family to an undisclosed location after pro-Ukrainian protesters swarmed the ski resort where he was vacationing. What has been the reaction to Vance's part in this Zelensky blow-up, particularly amongst the GOP? Because there's been a lot of analysis that I think is, again, ill-informed. I've read people saying that Donald Trump would be terribly upset with J.D. Vance's interjections and upstaging him. I don't think that's the case at all. I think those two are very much on the same page.
They are on the same page. In fact, if you go back to the Ohio Senate primary back in 2022, when J.D. Vance beat out Josh Mandel and the various others there, he ran on this exact platform. Ukraine was actually a major issue for J.D. Vance. And actually, things got really tense on one of those Ohio Republican primary Senate debate stages. Actually, I think it was doubling down so much on his stance on Ukraine. So J.D. actually really believes on this issue. He's in lockstep agreement with Donald Trump. By the way, these people at this ski resort, disgusting, absolutely disgusting. They are nothing new on the left, obviously. I remember this footage of Ted Cruz getting dinner with his family in Washington, D.C. years ago. They blow up, or not, they don't literally blow up, but they go in there, they intrude on the restaurant there, they have to kick the people out. This is a disgusting tactic. Conservatives don't do this there. This is the unique province of the left, and they should bow their heads in shame for it, because it's really just disgusting lowball gutter stuff.
It is lowball gutter stuff, but we are seeing this enormous political realignment. The left is suddenly now pro-war and anti-free speech. You wouldn't have called this a few years ago. Josh Hammer, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rita.